Welcome to Out with Dan, the podcast that spotlights and examines the voices of LGBTQ+ authors, characters, and our allies. Together, we lift our voices and we tell our stories. I'm Dan White. Join me as I chat with this week's author. Hello and welcome back to Out with Dan. Today I'm excited to talk to Paul Rudnick again. Today we're going to talk about his newest book, The Tuxedo Society. Welcome, Paul.
Oh, so good to see you. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. I love having you as a guest. So will you give the audience an overview of what the Tuxedo Society is about?
All right. It's a comic espionage thriller of all things, and it covers the Tuxedo Society, which is a top secret, all queer special ops unit. It was founded by a guy named Reggie O'Malley, who was an ex-Navy SEAL who was operating at the top of his skill set when he was kicked out during the Don't Ask, Don't Tell era. And when they asked him to come back once all was forgiven, he wasn't so happy about that. So he made some demands and he started the Tuxedo Society. And the story itself focuses on Andrew Birnbaum, who's a 25-year-old chronically unemployed actor living with roommates in the East Village. And he gets recruited by the Tuxedo Society for his skills in improv, among other things. So it's his particularly wild journey as he figures himself out and figures out how he can be of service to this pretty amazing organization.
Well, and I have to say that I loved the world building that you do with this. There's so many references to things that I think the general population would understand, but especially LGBTQ plus readers, because, you know, I was thinking of Roman Holiday and Three Coins and a Fountain, and, you know, because they go to exotic places in the world, but you also, as a queer writer, bring in those elements to us to remind us of things that we've seen in the past and also current things like Jason Bourne.
Oh, absolutely. Because I think Andrew is established early on as someone who is a complete pop culture obsessive, a freak. And it's funny because sometimes I thought, okay, how accessible is this? And then I realized I knew so many people across every age, race, gender lines who shared that. There are people who put me to shame in terms of the, let's not call it trivia, let's call it information, the LGBTQ science that they've accumulated. So that I stopped worrying after that. I did, anytime there's a reference, usually there's something in the story that explains it to people who might not be familiar with it. But yeah, it's sort of like a second language for a lot of people, but especially queer people, you know, that they know movies, TV, theater, music, you name it. And it's a constant in their lives. And I love that. I think it's joyous. I think it's also a way of connecting to other people and to the culture.
Yeah, I have a friend that he quotes Still Magnolias. I think he could recite the entire movie, Paul, from beginning to end. And there's something at every stage of his life that triggers something from that movie. And he'll just blurt out a quote. And we get such a kick out of it because it's, you know, it's a movie that spoke to a lot of people.
Yes, I think I just read an interview with Sally Field where she decided, you know, amusingly, that her being in that movie was why her son is gay. I love that. And I love the idea that science has now discovered the actual cause of homosexuality.
It's Still Magnolias.
And she was delighted with this development.
You know, and she is everyone's mom, or who we all wish we had as a mom anyway, because she is so loving and supportive of her children. And there's no distinction between her straight son and her gay son. She just loves them both.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, you know, that's what we should all aspire to, be a Sally Field in life.
Oh, and she's so talented, and she's also had such an extraordinary career where she went from being maybe not taken so seriously from her TV days to being this multiple Oscar-winning actress. And she's also really funny. I remember her in Soap Dish, where sometimes you don't expect that, and then she's hilarious. So yes. Yeah, I think she's one of the greats.
I do too. So I did have a laugh because when you talk about the Swiss Guards, at the Vatican. So I was in New Orleans once, and the French Foreign Legion docked at the dock in New Orleans, and they got off the ship, and I was standing there laughing so hard. I'm like, I don't know that they'd ever win on a battlefield, but they could easily kill the opponent because everybody's going to be laughing at their outfits,
Oh,
with the little tilted hats and little pom-pom on the top. And I'm like, oh my God, those are so cute.
But with the Swiss Guards, people are swooning, I think, also because Vatican City has its own laws. There have been murders within Vatican City that have not been prosecuted by the Italian government. And the Swiss Guards who wear these, anyone who's seen the Pope, his sort of security detail, these gorgeous striped, pantalooned, feathered get-ups. And they're some of the handsomest young guys in Italy. Lord knows how that happens. But they also look as if they're the chorus from Kiss Me Kate. They're just the best. And I also love when people, when newscasters are doing serious reports from Rome, and there are these guys, and there are hundreds of them dressed like that, and everyone just says, nope, we're just going to accept that. We are not going to comment on how glorious they look.
Well, and I do think the Vatican is smart in the fact that they put eye candy there because there's something for everyone. Not only is the architect amazing, but you put these Swiss Guards there, somebody's going to find Jesus one way or another.
Oh, yes. There's also, a couple of times that I've been in Rome, you can buy at the newsstands the hot priest calendar, which changes. And at first I wasn't sure if it was real or if they just dressed up hot guys in clerical collars. I don't care. But it's just, they're all gorgeous. And actually, when you go to services at the Vatican, oh my God, it's a hunk fest. So it's, but the calendar is special.
I can imagine. I have not seen one of those. I would like to see one of those.
You owe it to yourself.
I know I love the Australian firefighters calendar. That's always
my God.
Fun,
And sometimes they're holding puppies.
Right? It's like the price of one.
Exactly. You think they were fine even without the puppies.
Yes, they're absolutely. So how did this story come about for you, Paul?
Well, I am a lifelong fan of the Mission Impossible and Jason Bourne, and James Bond films. I just adore them. I just get lost in them. And I love how absurd they are as well, that they always open with some hyper melodramatic chase through, a warehouse or a monorail or, some dangerous location where hundreds of people seemingly die. But our hero makes it through looking great in his tuxedo.
Right.
So I thought, I'm not sure if this is a genre I could ever write, that it didn't seem somehow appropriate. But then I just couldn't resist, and I began the story, and I just adored it. I thought, okay, first of all, it's great to have some queer people in these stories who rarely appear. And beyond that, it just flew. I just thought, okay, wait, this is a group where you take the special skills that a lot of queer people develop, whether they're high-end real estate agents, whether they're diplomats, whether they're soldiers, whether they're actors, and you put them to use. It suddenly made a lot of sense that this would be a special ops crowd. And it was also a great statement against all of those hideous policies that had excluded gay people for so long, and still with the trans ban, it's obscene. So there are trans characters in here who are as patriotic as anyone. So it just became a joy to write because I got to spend time in those insane and passionate and fast moving worlds.
Which I love because I too am a fan of those action adventures like that. And I think who can't really be a fan of it? I think that's why they're so popular and why they've had such staying power all these years. But I think also that we as gay people bring something to the table that other people don't bring. Just as straight people would bring something to the table that a gay person won't, gay people bring something to the table. And I had a friend from college early on who joined the Army, what would have been his sophomore year. And he'd been in the service for less than a year when a superior came to him and said, "We think you're gay, and if you quit today, you can walk away." So because he knew that they had something on him, he decided to quit. And now this captain said, or higher up said, "Oh, don't worry, you won't lose anything." Well, little did he know that he was being basically blacklisted and banned and dishonorably discharged. He was told he could just walk away, but that wasn't the case. And this was before Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And it's
Right.
like, you know, and I think President Clinton was trying when they did Don't Ask, Don't Tell. They just didn't really realize the ramifications of it in the long run.
Yeah, no, I think there's this sort of shockingly awful history of American soldiers
Yes.
who were performing at the same level or above anyone else, who were still treated like garbage. But there's a wonderful writer named Gregory Cope White who wrote a book called The Pink Marine about his time in the Marine Corps. And it was made into a series on Netflix called Boots that was just terrific. And it was about how being in the service actually changed his life. He was kind of in a bad place, and it really helped him understand himself. And this was kind of during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. But it's a wonderful book and series because it's inspiring, because it's not what you think it's going to be. And he made friendships in the service that have lasted, for the rest of his life. So there are so many stories there to be told. And I think Tuxedo Society is both gay people's revenge against how they've been treated, and also a celebration of gay courage and gay valor, because you see so many people. And it's also why the trans ban is so awful, because so many people lost their jobs who'd been serving for years and had become absolutely invaluable. And to kick them out doesn't just hurt their lives, it hurts everyone, because we are losing their valuable skills and their dedication. So, that's something I really wanted to remedy in the Tuxedo.
Right. Well, I'm glad you did. And one of I think Andrew asked Reggie about why they had dinner meetings, and Reggie said because we like to hide in plain sight. Basically, that's to paraphrase what Reggie answered. But it is true. I think that sometimes if we go out and we're a little frivolous and we have a good time, they ignore us or they roll their eyes at us. And Reggie's like, this is a perfect foil and cover for us, because people don't take us seriously. And then we get the job done, and then we show them we're capable.
Oh, absolutely. I remember during the early years of the AIDS crisis, when often a lot of gay people in New York who were sometimes dismissed as frivolous, whether they were chorus boys or florists or writers, whatever, and they were the people who came through. They were the caregivers. They were the people who marched. They were the people who got those medications made available. And I thought they were so underestimated, and they were so impressive. And I think that's been true throughout history, and a lot of other minorities have gone through that as well, where they're sort of, kicked off or ignored. And I think the bravest people I know have often been gay people, also because they're working with their arms tied behind their back, that they have to both defend the basic fact of their lives while getting the job done.
Right. And, and I remember when, as I said earlier, they were beginning to put gay people out of the military. I used to think, well, and they also didn't want women to serve either,
Right.
Not in any kind of real service. And I remember thinking, a woman from a foreign country who infiltrates, say, a Marine's life, that Marine is willing to roll over and talk to her across a pillow about the secrets. But yet gay people were the ones that were always accused of that. The reason, I remember hearing somebody say, well, the reason gay people can't serve is because they don't know how to keep their mouth shut. And I'm like, most of us have been hiding our entire life. We were accustomed to keeping our mouth shut, not be too loud, not be too obvious, not be too boisterous, but to blend in, to be straight acting or what have you. That was a role I never was able to do, but I had friends that were passing.
Well, it's usually called code switching, where you realize you can function across all sorts of worlds, and it's a very valuable skill, and it's not always harmful. Sometimes it's just you switch on and off, and it's very helpful. Also, I think espionage, the movies and books, are often very sexy and very romantic, which I wanted to take full advantage of, because you have, as you said, you've got people who can obtain classified material and top secrets, using every aspect of their being. So it's plus I think gay people, can be wildly passionate. So I took full advantage, and Andrew manages to get involved with people from every country and, all sorts of dreamboats. So yeah, so I love that aspect of, because I also love the Dan Brown books,
Yes.
which have all been made into movies as well, usually with Tom Hanks, because his hero is this Harvard semiotics professor who just happens to be in great shape. He saves the world all the time, and he always meets up with some terribly attractive French, ornithologist, or there's some very learned, sophisticated foreign-born woman, and they have an affair while they're saving the universe. So I love that. I love that they make time,
Right?
to
To get all of their
pay
needs
for
met
hotel.
as well as saving the world. I love that.
Yes.
I
Mhm.
love that. Well, once again, the book is called The Tuxedo Society. It's by the ever wonderful Paul Rudnick. I enjoyed it very much, Paul, and I hope you have a lot of success with it.
Oh, thank you so much. I hope people like it. So
I think they will. If they don't, they should contact one of us and we'll set them straight. How's that?
yes, we will. We'll send the Marines in.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Out with Dan. You can find more information about this podcast and its host at outwithdan.com, on Twitter at OutWithDan, and on Instagram and Facebook at GoOutWithDan. This podcast is hosted by Authors on the Air Global Radio Network, and the theme music is provided by bensound.com. Join us again soon for the next episode of Out with Dan.